And you also give a good framework of the international perspective of this work. La propera persona de la...
Next speaker is going to be Jaume Hidalgo. Probably one of the busiest people these days. Jaume is a forest engineer, and he's guilty for us to be here today. He's the guilty one as a president and a responsible person of the Sèlvans organization. And he is responsible for organizing this Congress today. However, he's been working in it for years. He's been always working in forestry preservation. He's been working for 20 years already in different areas in the Pyrenees. He created the first network of mature forest. Then he been working in the regional council of Girona, and the Sèlvans program was created, and the first network in the Girona area. He's been working at the university, at Girona University as well, and he is responsible for the Sèlvans Association, which is organizing this Congress today. So, you have the floor, and we would like us to explain a little bit which is the proposal of the Catalan network of healing forests. Thank you very much, Miquel. Thanks to everybody. Probably you are going to ask yourself, what does Sèlvans mean? Sèlvans was God, and he was the god of forests. And he was a god in the Roman times and Iberian times as well. Iberians were a polytheistic people, and they had the god of forest as well. And if you read at the top word, the other way around, it's what it says, Sèlvans. We are an NGO that started working many years ago in Catalonia, and we specialized in the preservation of the most mature forests, of forests with very big trees. In most cases, these forests, in fact, exist to one of the reasons which have been pointed out by Maribel before. And this is important because the former trees can lead us to understand the present and future as well. And our main goal is to create a high-value forest with minimum human intervention with which covers at least 5% of our Mediterranean territory. Catalonia, I mean. Here you can see which is the meaning of this percentage. In green, you see the areas for the production of wood, biomass, etc., in quite an intensive way. In yellow, you could see the non-accessible areas, rocky areas. This stands for about 25%. I mean, areas which we cannot access. And then there are two different kinds of forestry areas as well, which are areas with some kind of human use and with big trees as well. maybe because this forestry is close to nature, or maybe because we lived for free. And then we have the forestry preserved by Sèlvans. And here we would like nature to continue with no human impact whatsoever. The healing therapeutic of some of these forests become a very highly valuable tool. So sorry, I forgot to locate the healing proportion of forests, and this should be located in areas with very big trees, because this we admire actually these trees, and they give us a higher level of well-being. Which is the task being made by our NGO in the last few years. Thanks to forestsJaume, we started working in the Natura Foundation, and we could enlarge our work to the whole of Catalonia. And thanks to many stakeholders, we identified 1,400 small areas, which together stand for 35,000 hectares. And this first diagnosis, which is an interpretation from satellite pictures, so this stands already for half of the 5%, which is our goal. But of course, one thing is drawing it in a map, and another thing is protecting it. We have to come to an agreement with the owners of these areas. We have to involve local administrations, etc., etc., etc. And for this, we developed 10 different tools which help us in our everyday job. Now we are surprised as well. Actually, we contacted more than 180 forest owners. That's a very good start, by the way. And we already protected about 160 stands in Catalonia for about 3,000 hectares. So, which is the healing method based on learnership? So, thanks to these methods, we could create some pillars. But beforehand, I'd like to explain to you about about specificities in our territory. So this area in the Mediterranean, which is Catalonia, has a high forest diversity. We have Mediterranean trees, Euro-Siberian trees, and Atlantic trees as well. And now we are starting to have some sub-desertic ones, African ones as well. So, the fact of having different kinds of forest in the coastal areas, in the mountain areas, helps us to have a touristic offer all year round. As you know, tourism here is highly concentrated in the summer and winter, and in spring and autumn instead these forests stand for very good resources. And they can improve the national health services for better well-being. and for better health. But there is something against this. Our orography is very complicated as well. In forest areas, there is a high inclination because flat areas have been occupied by agricultural land. Besides this, soils are rather poor, so our ecosystems are rather vulnerable. So our soils are not the same ones as in Central or North of Europe. And there is something else against us as well. And this is that most of these forests don't have any kind of protection whatsoever. Even in natural parks, forest could eventually be cut down. So it's important to understand that preservation is absolutely necessary if we wanted to deploy this healing functionality. Which are the pillars of this method? I've been giving you some hints as well, but I'm going to organize it better. These criteria, I mean. Some criteria to settle these quality standards for our network. Within this big matrix, we have to look at the sectors which will comply with this criteria. So, not all the preserved forest should have this healing functionality, just some of them, 2-4 of them percent, maybe within that 5% altogether. So, where can we deploy these functionalities? First, these areas should be relatively accessible. So flat lands, flat areas maybe, relaxing areas, not close to industrial areas at all, with no noise or pollution. There should be a certain number of old trees as well. It does not necessarily have to be a mature forest, but at least they should have a minimum density of big trees. So, from our perspective, we think that this is important. Why big trees are important? Because big part of life in the forest is protected by these elements. Forest is not just trees, it's not just bushes, it's not just herbs, it's lichen as well, fungi, and all the life that depends on these elements and of lots of other elements. These volatile organic compounds, and there are thousands of them, are not only produced in trees, but also in lichens with a higher density. In winter, forests are not dead. In winter, there are some mosses as well. And there are some organic, volatile organic compounds. The older is a tree, the more lichens it accumulates on its covers. And this is how we accumulate the life that depends on these maturity compounds in forests. But it's also important to be able to understand ourselves or to come to an agreement with the owners. So we try to come to an agreement with the different owners and give some advantages to the owners and provide some guarantees. And in this agreement, we can also protect that stand, the specific stands with a specific functionality. And if we also sow in the same properties, where we are not going to promote human activity, but this should be included in the agreement as well. So we have a double results with owners. As for management, it's important to exclude all the vulnerable areas or areas with endangered species. We would not include areas with endangered species, of course not. And it's important to understand that in these forests, sometimes we do some actions to prevent outbreaks of fire, or sometimes we guarantee the safety of it in order to ease some activities in some specific areas, in some stands. It's important to create certain logistics close to it. It's important to give the ability to people to do some activities as well. And it's important to have a public transportation nearby to diminish cars. And it's important, for example, to employ a guide, in fact, to minimize the number of cars. Another base is guiding, accompanying, safety, companionship through a professional guide. This guide is going to ease up this reconnection. He's going to give advice about the proper behavior. He's going to contribute to socializing and coordinate the activities or guarantee the number of visitors. Of course, we don't want too many people to attend these areas, in fact. Users of this forest, I have to say that, are highly respectful people as well. In these paths that are additional to some other infrastructures. So this small green infrastructure of healing forests become some kind of small natural temples. And when you go there, it's important that you breathe properly, that you enjoy tranquility and relax. Kind of what we did yesterday, you know. I mean, listening to the forest. Listen to the forest, understand how and feel how these trees help you out and provide you with psychological advantages and benefits. In this richness of all these compounds, especially in the more natural forests, provide more physiological benefits. And I'm not going to talk about it because there are some specific papers about it. So we go through these tracks in a group. In fact, and the University of Girona is creating a cooperative of guides, an association of guides for visiting paths in these forests. So we talk to local owners and local governments. We are cooperating with hospitals and with biomedical research centers, with city councils, and we make a difference in between cure forests and healing forests. These second ones should have higher quality items. We have 11 forests now with their respective guides. And thanks to some projects carried out by people who give the courses in these natural spaces, thanks to the will of the owners, we will gradually enlarge this network in the next coming years. And this is what we are doing. Thank you very much indeed.